Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures. It is time for your mostly weekly dose of obscurities in literature. And I know I may lose the interest of some people here and there with my non-stop Japanese art book barrage, but I will wholly blame surugaya.com for that one. They keep offering free worldwide shipping with no minimum, amount necessary. Well, at this point, I don't know who spent more, me on books or them on shipping, but I guess it's a mutual beneficial ecosystem that we've created. So we're going to take a pause from that, not because there is a lack of books or anything, but because I was discussing some of the stuff in this book right here with somebody, and they're like, oh, you never showed that. And I thought to myself, by Jove, you're right. I haven't, and I've actually acquired quite a few of these Bitmap books, so why haven't I talked about them in a while? I don't know. I sometimes take a lot of this stuff for granted and just assume everybody is this vast encyclopedic volume of knowledge of useless trivia and information that really doesn't pertain to most aspects of daily life. Granted, that's what today's topic is about. If you're like me and you have those really specific interests, then this is the kind of book for you. This is Go Straight, the Ultimate Guide to Side-Scrolling Beat-em-Ups. I take a little bit of issue with those words, the Ultimate Guide, but it is a really good one. Do not get either Bitmap Books or myself wrong in that regard. I feel like it serves a nice companion piece to like the hardcore gaming books, but that may be my own bias because I was at the point where in college my roommate and I probably should have been writing for the site because we were far too familiar with so many of those really obscure subjects. But anyway, if you're of a certain age or a certain inclination, a lot of this stuff probably looks familiar to you because you spent just as many days, quarters, what have you, playing this stuff. As with all Bitmap books, it is an absolute chonker of a book. It's well over 400 pages. It's hurting my forearm muscles just trying to pick this up, which is also probably my fault for not going to the gym as often as I need to, but that's a whole different story. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of decorative bits there, but what's sad is looking at this cover, I can honestly tell you where a few of these designs might have come from. Obviously, they're not going to be actual specific characters due to copyright issues, but yeah. I do love that upon opening the book, you're greeted with some very familiar words for this genre of game. Big, massive alphabetical index of everything. They are not in alphabetical order, so it is nice that they're there for you. Nice little intro, getting things started with Renegade. And they have a lot of interesting background info. These are the types of books that, what I would call a true coffee table book, where if it's on somebody's coffee table, well, obviously they've got impeccable taste, but it's like you can just flip to a random page and you're going to have something of interest there waiting for you. Now, one of the neat things about a lot of the Bitmap books is they have these massive, massive fold-out pages often. Okay. And this is kind of a cool one where they have the key ingredients for a typical side-scrolling beat-em-up and go into all of the details there. So, again, if you have friends, family, or loved ones that have no clue what you're talking about with this type of book, well, you can get them quickly acclimated in that regard. I do like how the book is kind of broken down by decades and years, what's going on in each of those. They have a quick rundown of the game, some being way more significant than others, but everybody's got a bit there. Looking at some of these, and it's kind of cool that a lot of the Bitmap books also are going to give you a nice cross comparison, much like the hardcore gaming stuff but these are a heck of a lot bigger and nicer, and go into a little bit more detail about them as well. Many an afternoon was spent playing Double Dragon, and I loved, this is not like a spoiler or anything, but this was a big deal if you actually made it to the end. And I remember one time at the arcade that happened, and I guess nobody had really seen it. It was one of those afternoons where we were just absolutely determined we were going to beat the game. And when you have to fight each other to save your girlfriend, that was kind of a big deal. Everybody was like, Ninja Warriors. Unfortunately, this does not have a nice pullout where, I want to say Ninja Warriors was the one that had the big, long, extra large cabinet when you played on it. That sounds right. Not seeing much mentioned about that. I could be wrong. One of my favorites, Razton, with its classic music and blatant Conan ripoffs. Kung Fu Kid. Some sections have more than others. Altered Beast. Now this is cool that we get the whole pantheon of creatures, characters, and sadly no bosses here. This does not look complete, does it? I see the bear, tiger, dragon, and werewolf. Isn't it just the golden wolf after that? I loved the dragon design in this. I can hear this picture, and I'm sure quite a few of you can out there as well. Unfortunately, every time I see this, you know, I'm hearing what he says, and I'm not going to do the "Welcome to your doom," but yeah. Splatterhouse, another classic. And it's kind of cool. Not every game has the same layout. We've got a very shiny, glossy Monster Squad explanation page here. I don't remember Double Dragon 2's cast as much, but it is kind of cool to see that. Bad dudes versus the Dragon Ninjas. Let's go for a burger, ha ha ha. I'm sure some of these games in here have more, you know, nostalgic value than others to different people. POW, Prisoners of War, I can remember this at one of the local pizza places that often had a lot more niche games. A lot of IRM, a lot of SNK stuff, especially pre-Neo Geo. So we used to get a good taste of that. Technos Japan. I can remember seeing some of the shooter stuff. Super Dodgeball in person. I hated the Adventures of Bayou Billy with a passion. Never enjoyed it. Do get a few of the various imports throughout here. I was looking for Alien Storm, but I haven't come across it yet. A major classic that I'm sure many people and their best buds were busy playing. Fond memories of watching movies with friends and then going to get that. Another all-time classic, Golden Axe. I remember the ending where they did that. DJ Boy, I swear I'd argue with people that nobody believed me this existed. For the longest time I thought it was a Sega game, but it was a real game. Not that anybody believed me. I was going to say, that looks like good old River City Ransom. I'm sure many of you have played that if you are of a certain age and, like I said, disposition for some of these types of games. Whether or not every single game of this genre is covered in this book, I couldn't actually tell you. Ninja Kids, I remember this one. I mean, I'm just jumping pages. Ah, that's what I was looking for. Good old Alien Storm. I loved this game. This is a game that I hated the fact that for most of my teenage years, I really wanted a Genesis, Mega Drive, whatever you wanted to call it. And this was one of those games, along with Phantasy Star, The Last Battle, or Fist of Another Star, if you want to call it its correct name. Ninja Clowns, I don't remember. Good old Streets of Rage. King of Dragons. I liked King of Dragons. I liked Magic Sword even more. Battletoads, those stupid jet bikes. I'm sure many of us have very horrible memories of those. Knights of the Round. I played just about every single Capcom game. Golden Axe 2. Mystical Fighter. Oh, okay, this is the Kabuki one. I was going to say Mystic Defender is another side-scroller that I absolutely enjoyed. That was also for the Genesis and Mega Drive, an early one for the system, in fact, based on the Peacock King manga, Kujakuo, written by a very bizarre and twisted hermit of a man that came up with some really crazy stuff. But then they made a Hong Kong Japanese co-production that starred Yunpyo Yunbao, who is one of mine and my wife's favorite Hong Kong classic movie stars and friends of Jackie Chan, obviously. King of the Monsters! Not as good as King of the Monsters 2. I like 2 better. DD Crew, I do not recognize. I was going to say, and that makes me think of... Sega made some weird side-scrollers. Good old Streets of Rage 2. Oh, yeah. Bucky O'Hare. That was an arcade game? I thought it was a Super Nintendo. I do like that the book actually lists all of the systems that things were available on. The X-Men arcade game. Arabian Fight, that's the one I was thinking of. I only saw it once, and I remember that it had like the anime cutscenes when you would have special attacks or something like that. I remember it on display. B-Rap Boys. It looks familiar, but I don't remember playing it. Guardians of the Hood. This is like Pit Fighter era. Nothing says hood clothes like a white guy in a bare midriff shirt and acid wash jeans. The 90s were a time. Undercover Cops. This is another one that I can remember arguing with people for years about until the internet finally proved me right that it did exist, an IREM game, as it's one of those things that just seemed to be, you know, you were in the right time, right place, I guess. There was only one local place that I ever remember, excuse me, encountering this game, and it was this weird, crazy, post-apocalyptic thing going on, and it just was wild. I do not know. Asterix. Okay. I remember stuff on the home system. Mutation Nation. I was going to say, if we're going to get into the SNK stuff, like King of the Monsters 2, I'm thinking like the Sengoku games. And, what was it? Baseball Bat Ninjas or whatever? Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Don't know this. Cyborg Justice. Batman Returns. I'm sure we all played at one point. Metamorphic Force I liked. I think it gave that Altered Beast vibe of, you know, getting to transform and turn into monster people. It was a Konami game. Ninja Baseball Batman. There he is. I thought it was an SNK game. It just says IREM. I swear I remember seeing it on a Neo Geo system, but that might have been one of those things that people just, you know, kind of would put the wrong boards into whatever case they had. Punisher, we can play as Nick Fury as player 2. The Sengoku games I absolutely loved. They were weird, and like you would kind of like get transported off into the mystical realms and fight a bunch of stuff. I mean, you could see, I'm barely about halfway through this now, and we're at Aliens versus Predator. Yeah, that was a cool game. You got like the breakdown of all of the stuff in there. I'm not going to spoil everything, obviously. UFO Common Yakisoban. That does not sound familiar. Bebe's Kids. I remember seeing that. In the theater, no less. Animated movie, I was there. It was the 90s. The Dungeons and Dragons games. These were cool. Many a quarter was wasted playing those. They had Shadows over Mysteria at the college kind of rec room, and I always enjoyed going in there and having somebody join in and we'd play through. Armored Warriors, the precursor to Cyberbots, where we saw a lot of the same mechs. Guardians Denji and Makai. This does not look familiar, but it looks kind of cool. I mean, you've seen one beat 'em up, you've seen them all, unfortunately, but Final Fight 3. Comic Zone was pretty fun. I always waited for the main character to end up in a costume. It bugged me that that never happened. I always thought it would be something like Kid Chameleon, where he got the various masks throughout the game. I always thought it would have been cool if he'd gotten like some kind of a costume, or various costumes. Sailor Moon looks nice, but I cannot remember ever seeing that. 95, I mean, I'd be in... Oh god, yes. This is what I was looking for. I was like, I'm killing time trying to find this game. Guardian Heroes. This was one that, you know, it got super majorly hyped after its release, and nobody really cared about the Saturn at the time. And so myself and my college roommate, wherever he may be these days, I know he ended up doing some game work as well, because he was just as crazy as me. Neither of us would have ever called ourselves a gamer, but both of us were so hardcore, very passionate video game fans. Anyway, so we tracked down the system, tracked down a bunch of stuff. Panzer Dragoon Saga back in the day, Radiant Silvergun, the big 6 megabyte RAM card or whatever you stuck on the back of the Saturn. I mean, we had all that junk. Anyways, this game was an awesome side-scrolling RPG. And for all intent and purposes, he leveled up and got new skills and powered up and junk. But the best part, and one thing that I'd love to see Bitmap do is something on fighting games. This had the wildest versus mode, where you could, anything that you encountered in the actual game, and there were like rare enemies that would pop up here and there, and they were like, I don't know how many different routes, but everybody was completely playable in a true versus mode. And you could do like battle royales, you can have all kinds of, you could throw the bosses in there, you could play as the bosses. It was just a heck of a lot of fun. And I know they re-released it for like the, you know, live systems, PS Plus, whatever, but it just wasn't the same. Having it on the original software, on the original system, just was, oh, good times. Good times. Oriental Legend. And then to follow that up with Panzer Bandit was an absolute knockoff in all the right ways. It was more of a sci-fi take on it, and there were a bunch of characters that you can actually unlock, almost all the bosses, and there was like some weird code that I ended up finding on like a Japanese website or something, and all of the bosses were fully playable. It was wild, except in this game you could use them both in versus and in story mode, and I paid a staggering 300 yen at the time for this game. That would have been like maybe $2 even back then. $2.50. It was so worth it. So much fun had with this game. Really, really fun. You can grab all the enemies and throw them, which just made things really wild. Battle Circuit. I remember seeing it once, and that was it. I've never had a chance to play it, but it looks absolutely wild. One of those types of things I'm sure one of these days I'm going to get around to. Crows, Tekken Force. I mean, we're obviously into newer stuff. I wonder if Cannon Spike is in this. The Bouncer. I did not care for the Bouncer, I'll be honest. I remember the Dragon Ball GT game. That was pretty fun. Not as fun as the Astro Boy game. Death by Degrees. I thought that was a PS3 game. I guess not. Shaolin Monks was kind of cool. God Hand. We have a copy of God Hand. This was an early Clover game, and it was just weird and fun, and had a hell of a catchy theme song, both in English and Japanese, and it's actually a really good translation, and I'm not going to sing it right now. I'm really tempted to. Castle Crashers. Played the crap out of that with my kids when they were little. Scott Pilgrim. That was a fun one. Code of Princess. I had such high hopes for this game, and it was such a sad letdown because it totally was in the spirit of Guardian Heroes, and obviously the designs were a bit more modern in their fan serviceness, which I wasn't as into, but like the princess in this game, the title or Code of Princess was just absolutely running around in nothing. But it was a really fun game. You can unlock a bunch of stuff. Dragon's Crown. The only thing I really wish about Dragon's Crown is you can unlock more kind of characters and goodies. It was still a fun one. You can't pick up the book. Phantom Breakers looks really familiar, and I feel like I downloaded it at one point. But I don't have a playable 360 anymore. Mother Russia Bleeds. That sounds very interesting. This is getting like way more modern stuff. Dead Island. I remember that version. Fight and Rage. Huh. River City Ransom Underground. You guys know that there is a River City Ransom 3 Kingdoms. It just came out recently, I believe. So you can see there is getting to be, this is like 2018, 2019. We're getting a lot more modern ones up here. The remake of Shadow of the Ninja. I'm like knocking the camera around. So there's just a fun pile of stuff in here. And I feel like this is just my chance to go nostalgically reminisce about this kind of stuff. But if you have any genre of really kind of niche games that came out back in the day, do yourself a favor, take a look for the Bitmap book stuff, because chances are, if it's a genre that really got a lot of coverage, you will find a book on it. RPGs, for sure. I don't think I ever did a video on the RPG ones. If you guys are curious about it, let me know. But yeah, fun stuff. Every now and then you can find these for a reasonable price. They are, unfortunately, UK based, which means if you are in the States, you are going to be paying shipping. So good luck in that endeavor. Sometimes they show up on Amazon. Shipping isn't that bad, but, you know, for a book of this size, thickness, and weight, you know, just be aware. So, with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamerlane with Obscurities and Miniatures saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.